March 1st. And so I assumed spring was going on everywhere, but it's not. So I checked the Netherlands and America, and that's like a few weeks away. But I leave Ukraine in 3 weeks today. I'm very excited about the new. I had already made this video and uploaded it. 3 people had clicked on, and I did not like how I looked. I didn't feel like I was modest enough, so I took it down and put my Moldova gold skirt on, and we're redoing it because I feel like it's an interesting subject. Let's talk logic. Why would God give me a street preacher to marry now? I was talking to a pastor's wife the other day. She did not know that I had struggled with wanting to be martyred, wanting to get out of here and all those things. And I was like, yeah, I have a hard calling. You know, yes, I've prayed to die at times. She was shocked by that. When I told her I wanted to get married, she said, I'm going to pray for you, somebody to preach with you. And I said, why? Why would I want a man to preach with me after everything I've been through? So this happens to me quite often. People look at my calling during a season and they assume they know what is best for my season and what I need. But doesn't the scripture say God gives us what we need? So let's talk about that. 10 years ago, I moved into my office. God provided my need for housing for me to live in an office on a black sofa that my pastor had given me, my evangelism pastor. Then I stayed at a few other places, and then I moved into my car. God met my need for housing by letting me live in my car, and then I drove that car, Motel Honda, all over America. I've lived in tents. I've lived in over 70 Airbnb homes. I've stayed in hostels, hotels. It would be really interesting to know how many places that I've stayed around the world. God has met my needs for housing in very unusual ways. So those of you that feel called to ministry, don't assume God will give you a home for your housing. 19 years ago, I was at Bible school. I was about to start Bible school. And I was sitting with the leaders in this big meeting, and I said, how am I going to get to the mission field? I raised my hand and asked this. How am I going to get to the mission field? I'm a single mother. You know, I've never been married. And they just kind of looked at each other like they didn't know how to answer. So one of them said, we provide husbands here. Well, guess what? They never provided a husband there. And so when I graduated from Bible school, I was feeling a little strange, like there's something missing in my life. I don't have a man, right? So God did not give me a man to get me to the mission field. Apparently, I did not need one, okay? God gives us what we need, and God did not think I needed a man to get me to the mission field. Okay, so I lived in my car. Why would God do that? I traveled the world by myself preaching the gospel without a man beside me, protecting me, carrying my luggage, making sure nobody hit me. That I was always protected. God did not think I needed that, or he would have given it to me. Okay, so now that I feel like that part of my ministry is over, that I'm not going to be traveling the world preaching the gospel on the streets, why? Let's talk logic. Why, after all that of God allowing me to live in crazy places, carry my bags alone through the middle of the night sometimes, by myself, with no phone? Why would God do that? And then now go, oh, now I'm going to give you a man to stand with you on the streets. Why would God do that? I don't even feel like I'm going to be doing that much street preaching anymore. I feel like my calling is going to be like a coffee shop at some point, Amsterdam Training Center. There's many things in my future I feel called to do. And let me boldly say this, if you don't know, I'm not attracted to men wearing Jesus t-shirts and carrying banners and bullhorns. Those are my brothers and people I do battle with. But I have never looked at one of them and said, oh my gosh, you're so like, I want you. Never, ever, 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 ever. It's not my thing. I like men with briefcases and, dressed up in suits and going to work and just highly intelligent with a career. That's my thing. That's what I like. I like Dutchmen. So logic aside, why would God give me one now? He didn't think I needed one as a gift for my graduation. He didn't think I needed one all these years. I remember when Steve Hill was preaching at the Brownsville Revival, and he said this: Jesus does not feel sorry for me. He tells me to go to sleep, get up in the morning, and write a new sermon, Steve. That's what he said. So that was my mentor for many, many years. He, from the pulpit, he mentored me, not one-on-one. But I watched his life and how he was militant and he was strong and he was plowing and he was standing and he was preaching and he was a very hard worker. And you reproduce who you are. You teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. So part of the reason I became a warrior is because I sat under a warrior. I did not sit under one of these men with skinny jeans. Okay? So I was sat under a warrior that preached the longest revival in American history, that came up with a new sermon every single day. So why would God give me a street preacher husband now? Just something to ponder. God gives us what we need. And you know what? Sometimes he gives us what we want. I don't like hanging out with Christians that tell me God doesn't give you what you want. Because God gave me what I wanted. Oh yeah, he did. You can't tell me God didn't give me what I wanted. I wanted to go all over Italy. I wanted to go to Verona, Italy. I wanted to go to the Great Wall of China. There's been a whole lot of things as a Christian that I have wanted that God said, okay, here it is. I wanted a yellow sweater. God gave me a yellow sweater at a thrift shop for 50 cents a few months ago, and from my very favorite store. So God will give you what you want too. God is not a jerk. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. People that say that the devil devil comes to you dressed as everything you've ever wanted, show me that in the scripture. That's not the devil. What's wrong with God giving you something you like? Every good and perfect gift comes from the Father, not comes from the devil. Every good and perfect gift comes from the Father. This is a huge soapbox for me personally, because I've dealt with Christians and churches telling me things about God that they viewed that did not bear witness with my spirit about God. God is better than we think. God protected me all these years. And like that lady said the other day, she said, you gave God your best years. And I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, and He's most likely going to reward me good for that, because I have obeyed and followed Him. Okay? So, it's a testimony. It really is. It's a testimony that God sent me to the nations without a man. That God did not have to give me somebody to stand with me to protect me. So, my book should be out this weekend, How I Survived the Ministry, 17 Years as a Woman Street Preacher. It's really good. It's going to be a good book. It'll be a little bit different than my other ones. But it's definitely me pouring out my heart of how I survived. Right now I'm on the men part, setting boundaries with men. So I was going to work on it last night, and I said, no, don't work on that part tired. You better be wide awake having coffee when you deal with that. God bless you from the Ukraine. I'm going back to Holland in 3 weeks. Write the vision down.